Hi everyone. A very good morning and good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Good morning.
Great. So we'll continue our discussion from where we left yesterday, guys. And for the people who are joining today, we spoke about what exactly a programming language is, and then different types of programming languages we have. And I would say different classifications of programming languages we have. Then we moved into what under what categories Python would fall into. Then I just introduced how you can create your own Google Colab account for developing the applications, and then we started with Python features. Okay, so today we'll deep dive into the other features of Python, and let me also introduce a couple of concepts. Okay, so like I was mentioning in the day before session, whatever the concepts we are going to learn here, right, over these 3 weeks, they are common for all the programming languages, guys. Okay. There could be slight differences, maybe 5 to 10% differences, but whatever the concepts we are discussing, they are like, core programming concepts, and they are applicable for any programming language. Okay. So today we are going to learn about variables and data types. Okay, so before I get into the explanation, anybody have any idea on what exactly a variable is?
We can store
Eh,
some data in it.
Yes, as simple as that. Okay, so how does it work, guys? I mean, when you are writing programming language, right? When you are creating a variable in your code, and when that particular line of code is getting executed, what happens in the backend? Any idea?
Uh, there will be some space given for that variable.
Yes. Okay. That's correct. I want you to understand a few things here. So going forward, whenever I'm referring to words like memory, RAM, I'm referring to RAM. Okay. And whenever I'm referring to words like storage or disk, okay, I'm referring to your hard disk. As simple as that. Okay. And whenever I'm referring to something like cores, they're nothing but your processor cores. Right? So before we get into the definition of variables and data types, let's try to understand how these three components coordinate. Okay. So just a moment, guys. Let me open my WordPad. Okay. Now we are talking about RAM, and then your processor cores, and I'm talking about disk, right? Okay. So disk has nothing to do with any processing that is going to happen, guys. So basically, talking about a disk, right? Whenever you want to store your data permanently, that is where hard disk comes into picture. But whenever you are running your code or whenever you are processing something, disk has nothing to do. Maybe in the first step and in the last step, it might come into picture. Let's say when you are reading a file from a disk. Okay, so that's the only instance where you interact with the disk. And let's say you have done all the operations on that file, and then finally you want to save that file to a disk. Again, disk comes into picture during the write operation. Okay, but all the processing that is happening in between, right? That that has everything to do with memory and processor cores. Okay. Now, let's say this is RAM or memory. Okay. And then let's say this is your processor. And in your processor, you have something called as cores, processor cores. Let's assume this is a quad core processor and I have 4 cores. Okay. So any idea, guys, why do we need these cores? And what is the advantage of having multiple cores?
Parallel processing.
Sorry?
Parallel processing.
Exactly. Okay. So these cores would help you in doing parallel processing. Okay. Even before that, forget about parallel processing. Just to process your application, it can be anything. To run your application, you need cores, processor cores. Okay. So these cores are the place where the code you have written will be executed. Okay. So for example, currently in my system, uh, Microsoft Edge is running, Chrome is running, Chrome browser, and then Teams is running, Notepad is running, and also WordPad is running. So what is happening? So all the code that is corresponding to run these applications are running in my processor cores. As simple as that. And all the data that is needed for this processing is stored in RAM. All the data that is needed to run these applications are stored in my RAM. Okay, I'll give you a simple example, guys. Let's say you have a .mp4 file, which is a video file, and you want to play this file. Okay, and the moment you open this file using any media player, maybe Windows Media Player or VLC Media Player, whatever it is. So first things first, this MP4 file, which is stored on your disk, will be brought into RAM. Will be brought into RAM. And now VLC Media Player is the one which is actually processing this data that is there in the RAM. And all the code written for running VLC Media Player will be executed in one of these cores. As simple as that, any media player. Okay, so for example, you click on play button, the code corresponding to play button will be executed in the core. You click on pause button, the code corresponding to that pause button would be executed in this core. Forward, backward, right? You drag it, or maybe you select any options, you zoom it. All the code corresponding to these operations will be executed in your processor core. As simple as that. Okay, but the video file which you are playing will be stored in RAM. Okay, now there is a connection, guys. I mean, whatever the application you are currently using in your system, right? At the end of the day, some code is running in the background. Okay, so we'll have to start looking at the things that way, right? Now, whatever the code we write will be used by somebody else. Okay, so let's say now talking about variable in your program would help you to store some value. That value can be anything. I repeat, variable in your programming language would help you to store some value. That value can be anything. Okay. So for example, in Python, right, this is how you create a variable. Variable name, variable name is equals to variable value. Okay. So for example, A is equals to 10. Okay. Maybe some course is equals to Python. Okay, maybe age is equals to 18. These are all examples of variables, guys. Okay, and these lines of code will be executed in one of your executor core. One of your processor core, whatever is available. So for example, you know, uh, the line of code is executed here. A is equals to 10. And this is what happens. In RAM, you have memory locations. In RAM, you have memory locations. Okay, and this value 10 will be stored in one of the memory locations available in your RAM. Okay, 10, and all the memory locations will have memory address. Okay, so that memory address would look like a combination of numbers and alphabets, guys. Okay, so maybe something like this. I'm just taking some random ones, something like this. Okay. Now, this A, which is called as variable name, is just a reference to this memory address. Okay, so this A is a reference to this memory address. As simple as that. So basically, A is for programmer reference. Internally, this variable is stored in some memory location, and this A is pointing to that memory location. So whenever you want to use this A at a later point of your at a later point in your code, it will go fetch the data from that location. As simple as that. Okay, so your memory location name won't be changed as A. A is for your reference, and it is just creating a pointer or a reference to the value that is stored in RAM. Okay. Now let's talk about data type. High level definition, but we will deep dive. Okay. So what is a data type?
Is number or string?
Number or string? Yeah. Types of data type. Yep.
And it's basically a type of value that is being
Like
stored to the
integer or
variable.
character.
Mm-hmm.
The
So it can
attribute,
either be a number or some
Mhm.
text
it's
or even a table.
associated with the data to tell the computer to what to do.
Yes, Soumya, you're almost there. In fact, the combination of all these answers is the right answer. Okay. So predominantly data type does a couple of things here. Okay, one is it will tell your computer like what is the type of data you're storing, whether it is a number, whether it is a character, whether it is a alphanumeric one, or maybe a Boolean value, or maybe a complex number. Okay, and secondly, this data type. I mean, why should we tell our computer that what value we are storing? Okay, because when you tell your computer what value to store, it will understand how much space it should allocate in RAM to store to store that value. Say for example, for storing 10 million, it won't be the same value. I mean same size. Okay, to store 10, you need a lesser space or lesser size. Okay, but when you want to store 10 million, you would need a bigger space. Okay, and then maybe you want to store a single word Python, it needs less space. But when you want to store a huge sentence, you need a more space. Okay, so by defining this data type, you are actually telling your computer or your compiler how much space to be allocated in RAM in order to store that value. Okay, so talking about other programming languages, right? You have lot of data types. Lot of data types. Okay, you have character, integer, long, float, double. Okay, but Python is simple, guys. Okay, in Python, you don't even have to tell this. In Python, you don't even have to tell this. Okay, you create a variable a is equals to 10. It will understand what is the data type of 10 based on the value, and it will allocate the required space. And then, you know, you create a variable, again course is equals to Python. Based on the word Python, it will understand what is the type you are storing, and how much space that needs to be allocated. Python is dynamically typed. Okay, if it is a C or any other programming language, this is how you create those variables, like int a is equals to 10. This is the syntax. So where this int is a data type, and then a is a variable name, and then this 10 is a value. Okay, so this is how you actually create variables in other programming languages, at least the ones which are not dynamically typed. Okay, whereas in Python, you don't have to do that. You can just create a variable a is equals to 10, and this should take care of inferring the type of this variable. Okay, it will automatically infer the type of this variable. And this feature is what we call as typed. Okay, Python is a typed programming language. I'm adding this to the list of features which we were discussing yesterday.
Suresh,
Mhm.
just a thought.
Hmm.
Can you use a real-time scenarios to explain the data types or something? Just like when you go to a bank, you are given a bank account number, and that
Mhm.
account number exists in your user ID. So user ID is a variable, and your account number is a int. Can you explain live scenarios? Just a thought.
I cannot do that at this point in time, Bhargav. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you are coming from experienced background, since you are picking up these examples, but at this point in time, I don't want to get there and confuse folks.
Okay.
Okay. So eventually the examples we do would be real-time examples only, the variables we create.
Okay.
Okay. At least they replicate real-time scenarios.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Suresh.
No worries, Bhargav. Right. So this feature is what we call as typed, guys. Okay. And now we'll talk about different data types we have,
Suresh,
mhm. Yeah.
Suresh, one question.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you mentioned that based on the value it assigned, it takes
Mhm.
as its data type, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I was just thinking, say for example, in types as byte, short, int, long. Okay.
Mhm.
So they are subset of each one. For example,
Mhm.
if you put a short, it can have a byte and short. If you put a int, it can have byte, short, int.
Yes.
Okay. So then how smart this is, it will take that as data type into the A, because it should support for the 3 if I put the last one, correct?
I'll tell you what, Shiva. So
Yeah.
basically, no, your question is valid. Okay. So we don't have that many data types in Python. Okay.
Okay.
So whatever the data types you have mentioned, right? All of them are considered as only int. There is no long.
Oh,
Okay. And if it is a decimal point value, it is a float. There is no double.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Now I understood. Okay.
Yeah. If it is a string value, it's just a string. We hardly have 5 data types.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
And based on the size of the value you are storing, right, it will dynamically allocate the memory. Okay. So ideally, another question you should be getting if you are into programming, especially C and Java. Okay. Boss, basically we assign proper data types to manage memory efficiently. Okay. So here Python is allocating that memory dynamically. So how far Python is efficient in allocating that memory as required?
Okay.
Make sense? Question?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
So it is efficient enough, but not on par with the programmer. Okay. So definitely this is like both win and loss situation. Okay. So that is the reason you don't see Python in a lot of application developments. Okay. So it's not that efficient. It's definitely efficient than whatever we do, but definitely not on par with Java in these type of things, because it will end up always allocating that additional memory.
Yeah, the memory it takes is more when compared with other languages
Yes,
like Java, because we declare the space needed, but whereas in Python we cannot do that.
we cannot do that, unfortunately.
okay.
Again, I don't want to call it unfortunately, because like I said, right, you know, um, you, when you are hungry, you should eat food. You shouldn't drink water. Okay, so Python has to be used where it can be used best, especially in the data areas. Okay, so if you ask me, boss, can't we develop a web application using Python? Yes, definitely you can develop, but no matter how much care you have taken, performance would definitely slightly less than the framework which you have built using Java. Okay,
Yep.
but people often ignores these demerits, guys. The reason being the ease of development. Okay, but I'll talk about, since this thing has come up, I'll talk about couple of things. I'll not be deep diving though. Have you ever heard about these words called space complexity and time complexity?
Yeah, Suresh, I hear about the space complexity and time complexity.
Okay. So for the people, I know we have a mixture of people here, few are freshers, few are experienced, few are very experienced, but into a different technology. But talking about these two things, right? You might not have heard about these two, but I'm pretty sure in order to crack an interview into Google, Facebook, Apple, right? So they would have first round DSA, data structures and algorithms. How many of you know this?
Yeah, I know, Suresh. I can understand what you're talking.
DSA, data structures and algorithms.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we know little.
Yeah. So talking about these data structures and algorithms, right? In that particular round, once you are done with your coding, all the discussion would happen on these two parameters, space complexity and time complexity, because these are the two parameters which would decide how efficient your code is. Okay. So like I said, like I mentioned in the first session, I was from computer science background, and trust me guys, these two terms were French and Latin to me back then. Okay, but the more I dive into this programming language, now I'm getting comfortable with these two. Okay, still I'm not comfortable with coming up with this log notations, big O notations and all, but at least I know what is space and time complexity. Okay, now space complexity is nothing but how much space, how efficient is your code in occupying or using space in your RAM. Space complexity defines, or space complexity decides, how efficient your code is in terms of utilizing space in RAM. As simple as that. And then time complexity decides how efficient your code is in utilizing CPU cycles or the processing cycles. Okay, how much time your code is spending. Okay, so these are the two parameters. The reason for these companies to emphasize a lot on these two things, or data structures and algorithms, is whatever the code you write, right? So should be efficient enough to execute faster. So for example, you are using a Word document, or I'll give you a simple example. If you are a Windows user, you will have two browsers, Internet Explorer, or maybe today we have got Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer and Chrome. How many of you have preferred Internet Explorer over Chrome, guys? Google Chrome?
Not many.
Not
Yeah,
many.
yeah.
Until and unless somebody is pushing you to use Internet Explorer, no, nobody would prefer Chrome. That's the drawback.
Time
Okay.
complex.
Yes. So that is not an efficient browser in terms of resource utilization. So generally we use this term called resources. When we use this term resources, it includes memory and processor. Okay. So if your application is not using resources properly, it will not be efficient. As simple as that. So companies like these, right? The product companies especially, they emphasize a lot on this time complexity and space complexity. Okay, because the code you write to build an application should be efficient enough to use the resources. And now let's talk about the other segment of the organizations or the companies, which are not product companies, like maybe domain companies, maybe banking like JP Morgan's, or Bank of America, or any investment organizations like Morgan Stanley, Franklin Templeton, or retail organizations. Again, when it comes to retail organizations, I'm not talking about the web development side of it, but the data analytics side of it, right? Like Amazon or Flipkart or any technology organizations, they don't emphasize a lot on space complexity and time complexity. Okay, the reason being they're not building a product. Okay, they're building an ML algorithm which would give them insights that will help them in the next quarter, or maybe next month, or maybe some sale is coming up, Amazon sale is coming up, Great Indian Sale, or maybe Thanksgiving sale is coming up. On what products they need to offer a good amount of discounts, right? Or maybe what discounts will create them win-win situation. They'll have to do all this analysis, right? Okay, for them to do this analysis, they don't need a lot of efficient code. I mean, they do need an efficient and good code, but at least those seconds doesn't really matter here, because their decision making is always in the future. I mean, for the future. Okay, so that is the reason these companies, especially into this data science, data engineering, or any data related things, they don't emphasize a lot on this performance. Again, I mean, there is always a scope for negotiation there for performance, but the efficiency in terms of programming, the ease of use, or the ease of debugging, ease of development, whatever you name it, Python will bring it onto your plate. Okay, so they can definitely ignore that slightly negotiable performance for all the advantages it is bringing in. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pick one example, guys. I don't know how many of you know this, but if you have started your career in 2012, 2014, or maybe even before that, in 2014, big data and Hadoop technologies were rock stars. Okay, so people used to get 100% hike, 200% hikes. In fact, in 2000, from 2014 till 2017, I have switched a couple of companies, and both the times I have got more than 150% hike. Okay, just because of the technology. Okay, back then people were using MapReduce. Okay, so they call that framework, they call that framework as Hadoop. And to develop Hadoop applications, we need to write we need to use framework called MapReduce, and the framework is MapReduce and programming language is Java. Okay, and then it got eventually fade out in 2016 when Spark took it over. Okay, and also when Spark took it over, Spark, they have claimed it is 100 times faster than MapReduce. True to some extent, but they have restricted again users to use either Scala or Java. So they were not able to onboard a lot of users, guys, because talking about this data area, we have multiple roles: data engineer, data scientist, data analyst. Okay, so bringing in all these folks and then making them write Java applications or Scala applications is not easy, because data scientist, he already knows Python. Okay, so that is when in 2017 or mid of 2017, they have introduced this new new component called PySpark. Okay, so developing the same Spark application using Python. That is when Spark started seeing success. You can go back and research on this. Okay, so that's the kind of role Python can play in the success of a framework or a product, in terms of usability, in terms of reception.
Yeah. So I have one question about this
Mm-hmm.
frameworks. So the MapReduce, Hadoop, PySpark, all these are the same frameworks?
No, Hadoop versus Spark.
Yeah. If you use Python, it is called PySpark. But for
Yes,
Spark, we need
if
Scala, right?
if you implement the same, say for example, Spark code, you can implement in 4 different languages: Java, Scala, Python, and there is another programming language called R. R, programming language name itself is R. Okay, so if you implement the Spark application or Spark framework using this Java or Scala, we still call them as Spark applications. But when you do it using Python, we call it as PySpark. Okay, and when you do it using R, we call it as Spark R. Okay.
Sorry, this might be a, I mean, unrelated question. Is that related to SAS, clinical SAS?
It's not SAS clinical science. R have multiple applications. But
Okay.
what you said is one area of applications of R, or where R is used.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Cool. It's good to have knowledge, guys. I mean, you don't need to shy away from asking questions. If I know, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, but I'll come back with an answer. Okay. So yeah,
Sorry. For Hadoop, which languages we need? Like Hadoop versus Spark. So like the Azure and
I would say don't learn Hadoop.
Okay,
Nobody
yeah,
is
but
using
why?
it.
I have confused
Java,
about it. Java.
Java,
Okay, so
only
like
Java.
AWS versus Azure, Hadoop versus Spark.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Can we quickly go to Python, please?
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll go to Python because these kind of discussions we can have when we are talking about data engineering. We do have data engineering separate sessions. Okay. So yeah, coming back to this, we were talking about this typed programming language right now. There are some do's and don'ts, guys. I mean, before we go there, I would introduce data types in Python to you. Okay. So they can be broadly categorized into number data type and then sequence data type. And then we have dict. Then we have Boolean. Okay. And then finally, we have something called as set. Okay. So these are the different types. And in number, you have int and float. And you have something called as complex. Okay. And in sequence, you have string. Okay. You have something called as list and tuple. Okay. And then we have dict, Boolean, and then set. Okay. So this dict is a dictionary. Boolean, we'll talk about it. And then set, right? So here, out of these data types, right, you might feel like, boss, these are not the data types which I heard in other programming language, at least the list, tuple, dictionary, and set. Okay, so these are what we call as collection data types as well. I'm not going to discuss about these things now. We have a separate topic for collections, but in Python, they are also considered as data types. Okay, collection data types is what we call them as. Okay, so int to store any integer value. It doesn't matter how big the integer is or how small the number is, but whenever you want to store a number like 10, 100, 20, a integer value. Okay, integer value is guys, if you are not talking, can you please go on mute? Guys, a small request. If you are not talking, can you please go on mute? Thank you. Okay, and whenever you want to store a decimal point value, right, that is where this float comes into picture. Any decimal point value, say for example 20.5 or 30.8, they all comes under float. Okay, and then you have complex. Basically complex number will store data in the form of a plus ig. Okay, I is nothing but root of -1. Okay, I'm still waiting for a scenario where I can use this. Complex data type is one thing which I have never used in my programming career. Okay, but I'm not sure how many of you still remember the complex numbers you have learned in your high school, maybe 8th standard or 9th standard. Okay, this is exactly the same. So the value of I square is -1. So I value is root of -1. Okay, but yeah, this will be in the form of a plus ij. And then string. String is string can be a combination of letters, numbers, and special characters, whatever you can type on your keyboard, except the functional keys. String can be a combination of any of these things. Okay, and the strings are already, strings are always enclosed inside quotes, a single quote or maybe a double quote. Both are accepted. And then you have this Boolean, under which you can store only two values, which is true or false. Python is case sensitive, guys. So I want you to remember Python is case sensitive. So whenever you are creating a Boolean variable, right? So true or false, this true has to be, this T and F has to be uppercase. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do some examples, create some variables, and then I'm going to introduce a couple more functions and then see how it works. Okay. Let me change this name.
Can you increase the font size? It's too tiny. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to create a variable a equals to 10. Okay. Now a variable has been created, but as a programmer, you might want to know what is the data type inferred by the computer, right? Or inferred by the compiler, Python compiler. So that is where you can use this type command, type function, guys. So type of a would give you the data type inferred by the computer, sorry, by the compiler, which is int. Okay, so likewise, you can create any variable and then you can check for, what is the data type inferred by the Python, right? Say, for example, I'm gonna create a variable called price. Price is equals to, let's say, maybe 30.56, or, whatever I have created will also do. And then when I do type of price, I'll get to see what is the type. There you go, float. And no matter how big it is, maybe I have added too many points. Okay. It is still float, guys. There is no such thing called as double here. Same thing applies to integer as well. No matter how big your number is, it's still integer. There is no long in Python. Okay. Now, let's say if I want to print the value. Okay. So you have this print function, print of price should print the value of this variable. Okay. So basically, this is something which I want you to understand. We have a couple of functions called print and input. Okay, so we call them as standard input output functions. Standard IO functions. Okay, which would help you to read or take input from standard input device and print output to standard output device. Okay, so standard input device is nothing but your keyboard, and standard output device is nothing but your monitor. When you want to see output on the screen or whatever you want to see on the screen, you will use something called as print function. And whenever you want to give input from your keyboard, you'll use this function called input. Okay, so we'll talk about this input at a later point in time, but print whatever you want to see on your screen, right? You can use print statement, guys. Okay, so that is what I'm using here. And since this is a REPL mode, you can also do it this way. I'm not using any print statement, but with price, I'm just printing price and you are still able to see the value. Okay. And this flexibility you'll have only when you are using notebook kind of an environment like Jupyter Notebook or Google Collaborator Notebook. But when you are using an IDE, you'll have to use print statement. Okay. Now, talking about a string, let's say I'm creating a variable name is equals to Sachin. Okay. So this is a string. And even if I give a single quote, that is also a string. Type of name will be a string. You'll see str. And maybe I'm going to give name is equals to Sachin in single quote. And then I'm going to check the type of name. Boss, so far you have been writing only one line of code in each cell. Is it mandatory? No, definitely not. Maybe, I'm just trying to explain one step at a time. So I'm using different cells. You call these things as cells, guys. Okay. And to run the same, you can click on this play button over here. or alternately the keyboard shortcut is Control Enter. Okay. Now you'll see something called a string, str. Okay. So it doesn't really matter whether you are using a double quote or a single quote, still Python will interpret this value as a string. Okay. Now moving on, I'm going to create another string. Welcome is equals to, maybe I'm going to print a huge welcome message. Hello all. Welcome to Python course. Okay. Now when I run this, it will throw an error. Can you guess why? Sorry.
There needs to be some concatenation. You need to mix up to that.
Quotation marks are missing at the front of the welcome.
It should be in the single line.
Yes, basically.
Indentation.
Sorry.
Variable.
Okay.
I think the early part of the conversation indicated that.
Right? The welcome.
Okay.
Variable name and a value is the same. Welcome.
That shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be a problem.
Indentation is the problem.
Indentation is also not problem here because there are no 2 lines of code here. Okay, I'll tell you. I mean, whatever you. Sorry.
You indicated, I think the early part of the conversation indicated it should be a single line statement, right?
Yes. That's correct. So
yeah,
that's correct. So basically here, what are the error you are seeing, right? Because of multi-line string. So what are the string I have given there? It's a multi-line string. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Though you are not seeing it, the moment I have hit enter, it has included a backslash and character. This backslash and character is nothing but the next line character. We refer to this backslash and character as the next line character, though it is not visible. The moment I hit enter, that has been added in the backend. Okay. Now, how should I tell my Python that this is a multi-line string and don't read this as a single line string? So basically what it is doing is it is reading this as a single line string and it is not seeing the closure here, the string closure. Okay, so that is the reason you are seeing this error, unterminated string literal. Okay, so it is not seeing any continuation over here. Okay, so in order to tell your computer, sorry, in order to tell your Python, it's a multi-line string, there are 2 ways of doing it. Either you add a backslash character here. This is what we call as escape sequence character. Okay, it will read this as a string. And there is another way of doing the same thing. This is my favorite way of doing it, using triple quotes. Okay, so using triple quotes, hello all, welcome to Python course. Now when I run this, this is also accepted both the ways. So my favorite way is using the second one, using triple quotes. The reason being, at times you'll have to create 100 to 200 lines of string. I'll give you an example also. Okay, so the best example would be passing a SQL statement, SQL query. Okay, so you end up writing 100 lines of SQL query or 200 lines of SQL query and then, pass that as a parameter, which is a string parameter. Okay, you can't go and append that backslash character in all the 200 lines of SQL code. Okay, so the best way there would be to use the triple quotes. I'm basically a triple quote guy. Okay, but if you are comfortable using backslash character, you can do that too. But these are what we call as multi-line strings, and multi-line strings have to be declared in triple quotes or in a single quote, but you'll have to add that backslash character at the end of every line. Okay.
Suresh, quick question then. Does it have to be double quotes? I mean, you say triple quotes. So
no, it can be three double quotes. It can be three single quotes as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
And a question on the editor. How are you doing the multiple blocks? I did only the, it's happening only on the single block.
Sorry, I didn't get your question, Shiva.
No,
You mean to say multiple cells?
yeah, multiple cells. How are you? Which key are you using to go to multiple cells?
This is Control M. And
Control
then M.
M. Okay.
But I'm doing it by clicking on code here. But you can see that suggestion, right? Add code, cell Control MB.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. What is this? This is a new text cell. Let me delete this. Okay. So this is about
Suresh,
multi-line
can you
string.
can you please quickly review this? For those I think who know how to code, they are following it very well. But one more, please, one more time.
Okay. So again, one request from my side, guys. Okay. So
When you started the collab, right? Just from that, just collab. I missed the point where that 3 point that number came, right? How the number is generated. That's where I wasn't sure.
which number?
Yes, the price right here. A equals to 10, and then you have price equals to. How did you generate that price there?
I have created this, right? I typed it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got it.
Okay.
No more
Yeah.
questions.
Yep. No worries. Guys, one request from my side. Okay. So, I mean, this can happen with anyone. I'm not pointing anyone here. Okay. So generally, I go at a pace which I feel is good. Okay. I don't do that with the kind of response I'm getting. Okay. And whenever you feel that I'm going at a faster pace, you can definitely stop me. Okay. Please stop me the moment you feel I'm going at a faster pace. Please don't tell me after 10 minutes or 20 minutes that I'm going at a faster pace and ask me to repeat all the 20-minute session. Okay. Because that would be definitely not possible and it would be boring for other folks who have followed the session. Okay, but you don't have to deal with that. If you are not comfortable, you stop me then and there itself. Okay. And the second thing, um, I really hate when people ask me to repeat the entire topic. Okay. I'll tell you why. I want to hear what you didn't follow. Ask specific question. Say, for example, I'm taking this string as an example. Okay, like I have created a multi-line string. Okay, so let's say you didn't understand why we'll have to put that backslash and character, sorry, that escape sequence character or this triple quote. I want you to point to that particular thing rather than asking me to repeat the multi-line string concept totally. Okay, there is a reason. When you do that, I understand what your pain point is and I can address only that particular pain point. Otherwise, when you ask me to repeat, I end up repeating the same thing, which you will never understand. I hope everybody is with me.
Yep. Yep. And also, I think there is the recording is also available, right? In case if required. You can
Yeah.
go through the recording.
Correct.
Can you run the 13th cell also, Suresh?
Okay. Yep.
So
Running
where
the
we
13th cell won't do anything. So what you want to see there, you want to check the type of welcome or you want to see how it is getting read.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Type of welcome will give you string. And then, maybe you want to see how it is getting
We have
read. You
to
can
welcome.
print welcome, here you go. Since you have given this escape sequence character, it read as one single string.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Yeah.
Okay. Now moving on to other, yeah.
Suresh, sorry. I ran the example of the triple quotes. It is not coming in a single, the output is not coming in a single line for me. It's coming in two different lines.
it will come in two different lines, but the output is still same. At the end of the day, string is a string, but it doesn't have any next line characters there. You don't need to worry about it. If you do any string operations on both the variables you are creating, you'll still get the same output. Okay. So don't worry too much about what you're seeing on your screen.
Okay.
Okay. When you do type for both of them, you'll still see string.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now moving on to the other data types. Let's say maybe I'm creating a data type called is married. So maybe is married true.
Suresh, I have one last question about this one. When we use the backslash, it is coming in single line, but we even use triple quotes, it's coming in 2 lines.
So basically the reason for the same is, using backslash, it will skip the backslash and character, next line character. Whereas in the second case, it won't skip the backslash and character, but it will ignore it. That is the reason when you print, you will see it in 2 lines. And in earlier case, you'll see it in single line, but it doesn't make any difference when you're doing any type of operation on both the methods.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now moving on, guys, I would highly recommend you not to practice along with me. Okay, whenever I'm teaching, right? There is the simple reason, you do it at your own pace, and when you're doing it at your own pace, you will Google for these things. You will end up learning more, maybe reading through 2, 3, 4 different blogs. Okay. That's the only intention. There is no other intention. And also you will lose your focus. These are just variables and data types. You can still manage. But when I get into the complex topics, loops, and other things, you'll not be able to cope up with the session when you are practicing parallelly. Okay, so that's my sincere request. Okay. Now, if is married is equals to true is something, a Boolean variable which I have created. Now, maybe if I do type of is married, it will give you bool, BOOL. And guys, if you see, I haven't added any single quote, double quote, nothing here. This is a keyword. True is a keyword and T has to be uppercase. And when I do this, it will throw an error because it is trying to read this true as a string, but it is not enclosed in braces. Sorry, not enclosed in quotes. Okay. So always be careful with cases you are using. Because Python is case sensitive. Type of is married is Boolean. Okay. Maybe I'm creating another variable is promoted to store the value whether a particular employee have been promoted or not, maybe false. Again, this is a keyword, false. And when you do type, it will be Boolean. And when you print it, it will be false. Like I said, you can print the values even without having to use print. It will print the values. Okay. And then finally, a complex number, num is equals to 5 plus 10j. Okay. And if I do type of num, it's going to be complex. There you go. This is something which I have never used, guys. So maybe this is one example. I mean, this is one data type where I might not be able to give you a real-time example. Okay, because this is something which I have never used. Okay, so there are few things which I'm still waiting to use. For example, bitwise operators, I have never used. Okay, but all the other variables we'll keep using. We'll do examples, a lot of examples. Okay. So we'll stop here, and when we resume tomorrow, we will gonna deep dive into other do's and don'ts of variables. We'll implement our first Python code, first significant Python code, and we'll jump into Python operators. Are we good?
No, Suresh, if you don't mind, can I share my screen for a minute? How to do that Google Colab? I'm a little confused.
Sirisha, you are not allowed. I'm so sorry. Again, it's not me who can take that call. Ideally, for any working sessions or for you to share your screen, you'll have to request for a separate session with me. Okay, because I'm not
Okay.
the admin here. I cannot allow you to share your screen.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Because I mean, there is a reason, guys. When we are dealing with multiple people, right? We cannot let every individual share their screen and ask their concerns. We do have separate sessions, okay, for the same. And I'll be giving you one-on-one support if needed. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions?
So, are we getting only videos, or we are getting any PDFs related to
Sorry?
the? Are we getting
Hello?
only recorded sessions,
th-
or also we are getting any PDFs related to the Python course?
You will not get any PDFs, but you will get all the notebooks, whatever I'm using.
Okay, so you are sharing in the same group, Suresh?
I think we are
Again,
given access to the Google Drive.
yes, it will be shared into that drive. And again, don't expect any notebooks in the first couple of weeks, guys. Again, this is intentional. I don't share notebooks in the first couple of weeks because I don't want you to do copy and paste. I want you to type.
Okay.
Okay, go through the recording and then type. That's how you get used to it.
Mhm.
Okay. But I'll be sharing all the notebooks that I'm gonna teach. And all the Python files as well. When we are using IDEs, we'll have Python files. I'm gonna share those files as well. So all the content you'll get.
Okay.
Whatever you're seeing here. And again, I'll not be sharing any of these material, guys. Whenever you feel something is important on your screen, please feel free to take a screenshot. Because I'm gonna erase this. Maybe today's session, you might not find it very important, but whenever I write something on my whiteboard, and if you feel that is important for your future reference, you can feel free to take a screenshot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's I have one question. Like, when do we call this number as complex type?
When you have it in the form of a plus ig, this is the definition of complex number.
Okay. Like when we have the characters and the numbers together, then that is called complex.
No. It should be in the form of the same thing. You cannot call this one as a complex number.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it has to be in this format, a plus bj.
Okay.
Okay, where a and b can be your integers.
Okay. Is it only J or we can use any other character?
You can't. It's only j.
Any reason for that? Like what does J specify here?
Now you can go through what is a complex number. That should answer your question, Fanny. Okay.
Okay.
So I was mentioning I when I was explaining I and j are same, root minus 1. That is how a complex number is defined.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So guys, I mean, don't take it in a different way when I'm asking you to Google something or go through it offline, because I also want you to put some effort right after this session. I'll keep giving you assignments as well. And sometimes whenever you're asking me some questions, I'll not be answering them in the session going forward as well. I'll be asking you to go do some research and come back. Okay, please don't take it otherwise. Please don't take it other way. My only intention is to make you spend some time. Okay, so that's the only intention. Cool, because I understand everybody of you are working professionals and you'll not get some time, but at least if I push you this way, you might spend some 10-15 minutes whenever you get some time to go through that. That's the only intention. There is no other intention. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow. I will have to join another session. Okay.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Lakshmi garu, can you please add my number to the WhatsApp group, Andy? I posted in the chat.